I'm here with Island author Frederic. He's actually published 3 books, Escape from Extinction, 2 nonfiction, and then Getting to Green as well. So tell me a little bit about, what was your first book that you put out?
Well, Christian Nation was written in 2013, and it had its origins in 2008 when Sarah Palin was nominated by John McCain to be vice president, which caused me to dive into the then obscure world of Christian nationalism, which at the time was a sort of very fringy sect, but it was very clear what their plan was for America. And nobody was sort of taking it seriously. There had been a lot of nonfiction books written. Nobody was reading them. So I thought, well, I'll try a novel. I mean, a novel that is a dystopian political novel that's also a fictional memoir. So in the book, the narrator is in the future, i.e. now.
2020.
Looking back, and it's a novel that's based on a counterfactual form, which is a sort of traditional form in this genre, which is everything before a certain event is historically true, and then the counterfactual occurs, and then you see what happens after that. And so in mine, the counterfactual is McCain, Palin win the 2008 election, not Obama, and it then goes forward from there. And so it's I'm very obviously devastated that it's come true, but it's coming true.
Well, I thought it had published this year.
Yeah,
and I thought it was a nonfiction.
Yeah, no, it's fiction. That's that, and that it was a difficult book. I mean, it there were a few people who praised it. It was praised from a literary perspective, but everybody saw I was nuts. He's overacting.
Right.
It could never happen here. In fact, you'll see that the subtitle is "It Could Happen Here," and that's a reference to Sinclair Lewis's book of that title, "It Could Happen Here," about the rise of American fascism in the 1930s.
How did you go from this to an actual, here's what I think, here's what needs to be done?
So
Jane Jacobs.
I've been an environmentalist, conservationist my whole life. Been involved in land trusts, and I just had found it bizarre in the extreme that the environment had become this divisive issue.
Right.
I mean, the conservation. I mean, what's more conservative than conservation? It started in America with Teddy Roosevelt, a Republican. Right. Every piece of federal environmental legislation was signed by Richard Nixon and supported by 100% of the Republican senators. I mean, and to go from there, right, to a place, and there's always been a debate over what's the right solution, right? One's a little more regulatory, one's a little more market-oriented. That's normal. But this idea that we had half the country starting to deny that the problems existed. So this was sort of a rallying cry. It said to the movement, the big NGOs, you have to make yourselves a home for conservatives. You have to bring conservatives and moderates back into this movement. It's not necessarily a welcoming home. You have to do that. And then, of course, it was a rallying cry to conservatives. Get in touch with your values, because your values, tell you to support this movement which you launched.
Right.
And so this book was written at a moment, people don't remember this, in 2016. There were 9 Republican senators who had come out and said, the GOP has to take the lead on climate change.
Right.
We can't, it's kind of, it's the issue of our age, and we can't give it over. And I was all set to go to the Republican convention, and we had, it was going to be a Republican platform about, apply conservative principles to saving the nature. And then, of course, Trump got nominated, and there was no platform. There was no convention, and of course, everything's just gone downhill. So that was that book. I mean, it's still a lot of value. It's still, people read it. I think a lot of conservatives love to read it because it reminds them of what conservative leadership used to look like.
Right.
And I'm not a partisan. I'm not one way or the other at all. But I'm committed to conservation, and so that was my effort to sort of move that forward. And the reason I was qualified to write it is I had, it was also this thing of two sides. I had been on boards of many important environmental organizations. But professionally, I also represented big companies involved in the resources world.
Right.
So I mean, I had kind of credentials on both sides,
right.
and it sort of enabled me to be very even-handed and I think rational. And
as an attorney, did they listen to you more once you had written the book?
It was already the beginnings of which team are you on, I'm only going to listen to you if I'm on my team. But I'll tell you, this book was on, I was one of the featured books on PBS NewsHour, PBS NewsHour picks, and that was, I got a huge response. I mean, people, as opposed to politicians,
right.
loved the book. I mean, PBS loved it because it was so even-handed and sort of two-sided, and I was on a 5-week book tour. The last stop was in Minneapolis. It was on a snowy night. There were 500 people, for a book talk.
Right.
So, I mean, it hit a nerve, and a lot of that history of the environmental movement, people don't know today. So when they heard it, they really found it fascinating. It sort of helped them reposition environmental issues in their mind. So I don't regret having written it, and I think it'll have its day again, hopefully.
I mean, it is the hardest thing to write because you have to make a convincing argument and you have to sell it as a book, I guess.
Yeah, and the book is, I mean, it's nonfiction, so it's not a story. I mean, the other 2 books are fiction, and they deal with serious topics, but they use fiction to get people to engage, which is a perfect segue to the 3rd book, which I'll briefly, briefly just say, because talk about a topic that people find hard to deal with. It's about CRISPR and genetic editing, right? Okay, people are vaguely aware that there's these advances in genetic editing and that somehow we can edit DNA now, but they don't quite know what it means. The majority of which would never read a nonfiction book, of which there are many. There's terrific journalism on the subject. People don't read that either. And I wanted to tell a whopping story that's really a page-turner that will take them through the whole book. They incidentally learn about genetic editing and why it's so important, and the main thing is they come to understand that it presents these enormous moral quandaries. And I mean, the way to think of this is that for 2 billion years, life on Earth was random mutation followed by natural selection. That's why life is the way it is everywhere. From this point forward, life on Earth will be what human beings decide they wish it to be. Now, that's the biggest thing really that's ever happened on the planet, which then causes you to ask, do we have the wisdom, and the moral center to exercise that power? It's not didactic. I'm not saying we don't, but I'm telling a story that illustrates.
I'm not sure we don't, but
it illustrates the complexity of the issues and how profound they are. And it's fun, and it's a fun read.
Does the speed of all of the things that are happening each year surprise you, even as a person who's put this in time as a fixed? No, because in the biotech world, things are kind of pretty much moving on the predicted pace. Right. The public attention has lagged. I mean, most people don't know that we already have brought back one extinct animal from extinction. Most people don't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, okay.
What animal was it?
This was a European mountain goat, species of European mountain goat. It's not.
I want to see that goat.
Well, of course, he's dead. He's dead.
He's dead.
But they're working on bringing back the woolly mammoth. And this is not a fantasy. The head of the genetics lab at Harvard said he could bring back a Neanderthal for $30 million, which is nothing. And then,
I don't want people to do that, but I do want to see them.
Yeah. Well, of course we want to see them. And actually, I'll give you a little teaser for this book. The book deals with the mystery of Neanderthal extinction. Why did we, as opposed to they, inherit the Earth? And the answer is not, let's say, flattering to Homo sapiens. And there is an issue as to whether the planet might in fact be better off if there was another sentient species that we were cohabiting with. And I'll leave it there. We'll just say that Neanderthals were, there's good reason to think that they were unable to lie. Among the great apes, certain of the great apes genetically are able to engage in deception in certain ways. It's a genetic trait. People don't know that. Right? It's like gorillas can, chimps can't.
Yeah, okay.
And so, I mean, one thing we know is that humanity are the best liars, who've ever been invented. All our origin myths, the Pandora's box, all have deception as the essential character in the origin of the species. And so, anyway, the book is sort of optimistic in that sense that maybe, and of course, as you know, about a third of well, more than that, but in North America, about a third of the North American species that were here when humans arrived from down through Alaska were killed by us. And this book also, that's why it's called an ecogenetic novel, because a tech billionaire is also engaged in repopulating a part of the Pacific Northwest with other extinct species for environmental reasons. Yeah, so,
It's good stuff. Very timely. Very timely. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. You're
Great.
welcome.
I appreciate it. Nice to see you.
Good.